Hi folks, I'm Klaus Lebrecht. You may know me from some of my other ventures, Antlers by Klaus, our fish company, our Natures by Klaus, Waters by Klaus. Today we're going to try to do a very realistic paint job on this using just acrylic paints. There are many different ways you could approach this. You could use oil paints, you could use airbrush and do it the way it's done in the taxidermy industry, or just as we're going to do today with a simple set of acrylics. Try to get this as real looking as we possibly can. So to start out with, folks, I'm just going to work on the fins, block those in with some color, and start to detail them, and then I'm going to work my way in through the body. So I'm choosing my colors right now to work with. It's going to be a kind of a blue-gray fin, scooping out some paint out of these little containers. So I got my two colors out here. I'm going to use a little black because I've got to mix these and tone it down. And I am going to take just a tad bit of green. So I'm kind of approaching the color I wanted here. I'm just going to start on the fin. You're going to have to paint that plaque with some color, and don't worry about getting a little bit of paint and being totally accurate in doing this. I'm just going to side swipe this a little bit so that the rays that are on the fin catch the paint, much like putting a quarter under a piece of paper and or rubbing a pencil over it and getting the impression of the quarter on the paper. So now we've got the lower fin, which is called the anal fin on the bottom here. And this butts right up to the body. And I'm going to make that a little bit lighter as the fin comes towards the body. The two fins we just colored have more of an opaque nature, but the dorsal, the spiny dorsal, has more of a translucent. So we're going to put in a little bit of a lighter color. Blocking in the background color here. This is still a little wet, so it allows me to blend this a little bit as I'm doing this. The white and the lighter color is blending with the darker one. Okay, now I'm going to go over this whole works a little bit and soften down the sharpness of this detail. It punches pretty hard right now. It's pretty strong contrast between everything I did. I'm going to mix up kind of a, I call it a top wash, if you want to call it. The technique I'm doing right now, rather than brushing, is called stippling. I'm using the tips of the brush to add color in a very careful, controlled way. Very, very good technique. Now on this fin we have a clear, translucent plastic, as it were, to give it a little bit more of a lifelike coloring. I have a really soft yellow on there. So now we're going to go into the body. The first thing I'm going to do is the eye. So I'm going to get some gold. We're going to let that dry because we're going to come in there and we're going to do our detailing in a little while. So I'm going to start right here. That's a really nice technique to run the brush across the scales because it gives you all the detail. Because I want to work on some more of this, I'm going to seal this down a little bit here. Doesn't take much. That locks my color in place and makes it so when I put a top color on, it won't have the tendency to want to lift the color below it. So I'm just going to block in the areas on the gill that are blue. But I'm gonna go in there now and I'm gonna paint the ear. The ear has a very black, more or less, tip to it. And I'm gonna go back to my gold I had here, mix some black in with it to finish out the eye. Now the area on the edge of the eye is darker, so we're gonna just kind of stipple that in. We want to keep that ring, that sharp little ring around the eye. That little gold ring is there now. And almost every fish eye has that, so it's important. This is one of the really important parts that you don't want to ignore as unimportant. Now I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to put in some little soft bars. You want to be very translucent. These are markings that show up on the fish. They're not very strong, heavy markings. They're very soft. Be very careful to have a light touch doing this and hold your brush at a pretty sharp or low angle to the scales. If you get too aggressive, you'll fill all that in and then the detail is lost. Now the lips on this little guy are pretty intricate because it's so small, so you have to be very careful to read where that is and be able to preserve that so it's not lost in a kind of a collage of paint. As you can see, this is a soft, subtle process of just going over and over again. You can't do this in one step. It's a slow process of just working it slowly and again until all of a sudden what you're looking for is there. Okay, this is a process we call tipping, and we're not going to get super crazy with this here, but we're gonna do some things. First thing I'm going to do is come into that breast area there, and we're going to accentuate the scales that are there. And this little guy, these are small, so it's a kind of a tedious thing to paint them. We want this random pattern, not one that looks like a machine did it, to kind of accentuate just these little details and create that look that we're after. So we're going to put a very modest seal coat on this again, and we're ready to attack the painting of the background of the fish. And we're going to now put in a background with some blue water, and we'll put some vegetation, that kind of thing in here, so this gets a little more depth and so forth. So I'm just going to start out by putting on some blue color here. There we go for the first coat, so to speak, the wash. So I'm going to start painting on my border. I'm far from done with the rest of it, but I want a kind of a base coat, as it were, on this. So first thing I'm going to do is come in here with some of this white, a little bit of blue, very little bit, and I'm going to create some lighter top water surface. So all I'm going to do now is to wrap this up and do a little rock base, and we're off to the races to finish this thing up. I'm doing here is a technique of putting in rocks. This is very basic right now. We're just now creating perspective of it, fading off in the distance. So we're winding down this project here. As you can see, I could paint other little fish in there in the background. There's just so many endless options of what a person can do. It's basically left up to your imagination is all. I'm going to go back up and I'm going to put in some rays of light coming down from above. Now, like all pieces of art, I highly recommend to sign your piece. So that's what I'm going to do here. That's always the most satisfying part. Well, there we go, folks. That's the finished piece right there. This was a lot of fun to do for myself, as well as developing the product. What we are doing as a company is we're making a whole series of fish. The crappie, the perch, bass, northern pike, all the different freshwater fish that are out there. And we're going to do them in the same format where they're put on a plaque and you could paint them. You can paint them to be realistic, which is what I tried to achieve here. You can be impressionistic. You can do whatever you want. You can paint them to be like cartoons if you want. You can paint a background and you can paint the plaque completely one color. It's all up to you what you guys want to do. It's a lot of options. But this is really kind of a three-dimensional painting is what I would call it, because you have the embossed fish and yet a flat background. It's marrying kind of two-dimensional art with almost three-dimensional art and giving you the opportunity to create something that's pretty unique to put on the wall. We hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it was insightful to you, and thanks for tuning in.